All right, welcome. I'm here with Kendra Moran, and Kendra is in Colorado. She's a full-time artist, and she's the founder of Being Sacred Art. She holds a Master of Fine Arts from Southern Illinois University, and she's been practicing art for over 15 years. Kendra spent 4 years teaching art in the public school system, but always knew deep down that she was meant to be a full-time maker and creatress. Being sacred is her journey in following her true path of divine expression. Her inquiry in art and life is a continuous quest to live all moments completely in line with her spiritual essence. Art has always been her foundation. Her work explores concepts of spirituality, ceremony, ritual, sublime nature, and the divine feminine. She represents in art what feeds her soul. She connects deeply to the land and depicts sacred spaces and practices that honor, heal, and allow the soul to grow and glow. Kendra strives to surround herself with everything handmade and hopes to inspire others to do the same. She believes objects that are created by hand hold power and bring us into presence. You can follow her story on Instagram at Being Sacred Art. And that's where I found her. I found you on Instagram and welcome. I'm so happy that you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's an honor to chat with you.
And so you're in Colorado, I'm here in South Florida. And when I was looking at your Instagram, I was immediately um like taken aback from it. I thought it was so beautiful. I love the handmade natural kind of like the whole vibe. And as I looked at it more, that you do pottery, painting, and looks like digital art,
Mhm.
and you even make drums. And I just like looking through your Instagram. It makes me want to go live in Colorado and just like hang out in, in nature. And that's really shows up in your artwork. And so before we get into that, I want to ask a little bit about you. When did you realize that you were interested in art, maybe as a child, or was it later in life, for example?
Yeah, I don't think there was any like specific moment per se. I just think I've always been an artist and it was just always embodied in my being. I think when first started to kind of boom out was in middle school when I took darkroom photography, which is now kind of a dying art form. So I find it really special that I was able to get into that at such a young age. And my dad pulled out his old film camera and gave it to me, and I would just take lots of photos. And I actually got a scholarship to go to a darkroom photography camp in Maine.
Hmm.
So that was kind of my first art form that I started with. And then just throughout high school, like I was just deep into art. I was always in the art room. I would eat my lunch in there, and I just always knew that I was an artist, and there was really no other question that I was going to like study art and just be an artist the rest of my life.
So did you draw or do anything before this photography class, or that was the very first? That wasn't the first time you did art, but that you're saying that's what really made you go for it.
Yeah, I think I was always drawing. I don't remember if I had like a specific practice at home before then, but definitely like after then and then all through high school, like I was constantly drawing at home like every night. And so that was kind of the way that I kind of deep dove into it. I'm sure I was probably just like super excited to go to art class all through like elementary school, and I did different like art projects at home with my parents. But yeah, that's when I was really kind of tried to find my own identity in art, I believe.
Did you find that anyone specifically encouraged you or maybe even discouraged you?
I've always just been encouraged by everyone around me. I'm really lucky to have parents who supported the arts and me following my passion in the arts and going to art school. I know in art school, some other parents would look down upon their children like studying art full time in college because it's really hard to make it as an artist and have a career afterwards. So I was really lucky to have parents who were always behind me. My dad was a full-time musician,
Mm.
so I think that really helped, just know that I can follow my passion, whatever that may be, and that was really special.
That's so important and that's so nice. I mean, you could still thrive as an artist, but it always helps to have your your family supporting you and understanding it. So if you come from a family of artists, there's one obstacle, like one less obstacle you have to kind of cross with that. So that's really great.
Yeah.
Um,
And also just, like, becoming a full-time artist from, like, a teacher and finishing college, like, my husband has always just been, like, my number one supporter through all of that, and I'm sure I'll get more into that later on when we talk more about, like, my business progression and
yeah.
but
Yeah, I want to know all about it. And so speaking of teacher, I want to know, um, were you an art teacher, I'm assuming, or no?
yeah,
An art
so
teacher. Okay.
taught undergrad classes all through grad school. I taught 2 undergrad classes every semester for 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
then, I was an elementary art teacher for 3 years in the public school system, and then I moved to high school, and I was a high school art teacher for 1 year, and then
Mm-hmm.
I became a full-time artist after that.
So I was also an art teacher in public schools, like three and a private school, three different types of schools. But I want to know because like as an artist and then you have a different job which is related to art and I love it and you're helping other kids find their voice and it's such a rewarding um job. But as a like you said, you're an artist deep down, and like it's always kind of nagging at you to like focus on your art too. So I'm wondering what made you switch? Like what was that one last not last thing, but like what really made you say, okay, I'm going for it. I'm going to start my own business.
Mhm. So, I always have considered myself an artist and a maker first and foremost, so that was always my mindset even when I was a teacher. I would always come home and still have a really regular and consistent art making practice, which
Hmm.
really grateful that I did that because it was really hard. Teaching, is
Hmm.
exhausting. So you get home and it's really hard to like focus on that. But so it was really a natural progression. I think in the back of my mind, I always knew that that was going to come at some point, and
Hmm.
teaching was a really good job for me out right out of like grad school and school because it's a full-time job. I can
Hmm.
make some money, like have a steady income. And it was really awesome to work with all the different age groups and just watch their creative process and guide them through that. Um, when my husband and I were going to move to Colorado from Maine, I was a teacher in Maine mostly.
Hmm.
It just felt like a natural progression to start my own business at that time because I would have to get different licensure in Colorado, and I didn't know if I could even teach in Colorado. When I became a teacher in Maine, I had an alternative licensure because I studied fine art all through school. And it's funny, like way back in undergrad, I was making a choice on what I wanted my major to be. And I could do a BFA in fine arts or I could do art education. And that was kind of the moment when I decided, like, I'm doing fine arts and I'm going to be an artist. So
Hmm.
it was almost like kind of a little time period where I dabbled in teaching and was really fulfilled by it during that time, and then to go back to like my core and my roots of like what I feel like I actually am is a maker. And when I taught high school, it was cool because I was making art often alongside the students. And even in elementary, I would bring in pottery that I made from home and I would show them. And
Hmm.
that was definitely like a big staple in my teaching philosophy and still is today because I teach within the community.
Hmm.
And I feel like the kids get inspired by seeing me so passionate about being a maker. So that was
Right.
definitely important to me when I was teaching.
Yeah, that's amazing just to see, like, get up close to see your an artist in action, really, and making it as their life. And I think that's great. I would love to be one of those students, like just seeing what you do. Um, So I'm wondering if there were any challenges that you overcame during that career change. So it sounds like you said, a natural transition. Um, you're moved. It was a great time to start. And at that point, did you have a lot of artwork ready to sell, or what stage were you in, and what did you overcome?
Yeah. So I definitely like started my Instagram up. I started making pottery pieces that last year to sell for markets because when I moved to Colorado, I didn't know if I would even be able to make pottery at all, if I would have access to kilns,
Mm,
or have a studio or anything. So it was kind of all up in the air. And I had a whole body of oil paintings that I had made throughout that time. So that definitely really helped me with the transition because I didn't have a studio for a year. We rented a apartment for a little while, and then we were looking to buy a house, and then we bought our house here. And we created my studio in the basement, but there was a lot of things we had to do beforehand. Like we laid concrete, and had to like level the floors. And so it was definitely challenging to not have a studio for almost a year
mm,
and still work on starting my business and feeling like I couldn't do what I needed to do to really have it kind of propel forward in those beginning stages. So that was
mm,
definitely super challenging. It was actually the first time I didn't have a studio space in years and years and years and years, pretty much since I moved out of my parents' house.
mm,
Um, and then just starting a business is extremely challenging. There was definitely a lot of things that I didn't like know would be so challenging, just all the initial startup stuff, becoming official with the state, creating an LLC, just getting different insurances that I need for all the different things that I do under my business because I'm a
mm,
teacher and a maker and I sell paintings and pottery in all different venues. um, and then it was interesting. I'm at about a year mark of starting my business, and definitely it was very challenging as an artist, to not have like a lot of income, and it's really hard to make it as an artist. And I definitely had a lot of like feeling like I was failing with my business, coming up on 1 year. And but I actually went and got fingerprinted to potentially go back to teaching, so that kind of
mm,
shows viscerally where I was at one point. But now I'm just like so confident with my business, and I'm working just so hard to continue to make it successful and being patient in the process of building the business because it really takes years to develop. And
mhm,
again, just so grateful to my husband for like supporting us and supporting me in this endeavor, even when I might not be bringing in a ton of income at first. And so those are definitely the biggest challenges that I've had
mm.
to overcome this year.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard to start up a new business, and as an artist too. Is where Can I ask where you mostly seem to sell your work? Is it online or craft fairs? Like where do you where do you actually sell your work?
So right now I'm kind of all over the place. I'm just seeing what works out. I'm in um, a, a few different storefronts where I sell pieces. I go to different markets pretty much every month or so. I have a couple of those. I sell online. So really all of the above. And as I continue to work on my business, I'll start like phasing some of those out and working deeper into which ones of those feel good to me and which ones have
Hmm.
been working best. So I think with the business, it's all about starting like really big and wide and broad and like narrowing it in as time goes on. And
Right. Like seeing what's up, like works exactly.
yeah, because definitely
Yeah.
initially I thought like markets would be a huge thing for me. And I'm actually going to start phasing out of markets
Mm,
because, first of all, the weather has been very stressful. I've had
mm.
lots of rain markets. I had a market where it hailed on me and I like damaged a lot of pottery,
Oh
which was
wow.
really hard.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just they haven't been as good as I thought they would be. It's really amazing to talk to people during them, so I think I'll always, like, do some of them just to get out and about. But yeah,
Right.
it's constantly adjusting and, doing things that you didn't think that you would be doing.
Hmm. Um, and you mentioned, so a lot of your work is based on the land, the divine feminine, rituals, and the earth. And I love your style. You mostly are you mostly doing ceramics, or do you think it's like half and half? Because you also have drawings and paintings.
Yeah, I've never been an artist to kinda niche down
Okay.
into one, like, very specific thing. I definitely identify first and foremost as an oil painter,
Mm.
even though I haven't been oil painting a lot lately under my business, but I think it'll come back around. So lately, what I've been doing primarily is pottery and digital Procreate paintings/drawings.
I wanted to ask about those digital paintings if they were Procreate. So now
Mhm.
I know.
Yeah.
I love them. They're colorful, they're expressive, and I just love your style. Like it's very um like flowy, but like earthy too, with the like strong colors, and there's a rhythm to it. And I rhythm in terms of, the principle of art, like movement and rhythm. And I love them. They're so beautiful. And I like the way you draw fire. I just want to say
Thank
that.
you.
So I want to know more about the actual subject matter, because I was also drawn to your work because I'm also into spirituality. And on a personal note, I would love for it to come through my work more. Um, I don't know. I was very drawn to it. So can you tell us about your inspiration a little more?
Yeah. I think so I did a series on landscapes, which was kind of sacred land. One of them's behind me right here on the wall. And then I moved into a series of the divine feminine and women in ceremony. And I think and now I've moved into more of the Procreate drawings, with just general like community gathering around fire, ceremony, ritual, all of that. And I think the overarching like theme is spirituality, and my spirituality definitely stems from Native American practices, among other things like yogic practices and other cultures, but definitely heavily into Native American practices. I've always gone to sweat lodges and fire ceremonies and just like learned all of the different ways that Native Americans connect to the land, down to like how they speak about the land as like not an object or an it, but like a being, like a living being, and just interacting with the land in all the ancient ways. So creating fire from a bow drill, and my husband and I harvested an elk, and just using all the different parts of the elk, and like using the hoofs to make instruments and that I play along with the drums that I create out of clay, and use like all that intertwined within ceremony. So actually creating like those ceremonies or being a part of those ceremonies and photographing them and then turning them into like 2D
Mm.
art or 3D art by making the drums later on.
Hmm. So the pictures of the ceremonies are ones you've taken, and then okay. Oh, very
Yes,
neat.
I pretty much solely work from photographs of my life.
Hmm. And yeah, I love how it doesn't look, like flat like a photo. It's really I'm assuming you just use the photo as um your resource, and you took it a step further, and it's just beautiful artwork. Um, I'm wondering, do you have a typical work schedule, and what does it look like?
So I definitely try to work during normal business hours, when my husband's at work also,
Mhm.
so that we can come together and spend more time together. But definitely with my business this year, I work pretty much whenever I'm free, nights, weekends, and then I'll take periods off where, like in April of this year, I took a 2-week trip to southern Utah and did kind of like a vision quest in the land. And I was very much working and making art like during that time also. But then it's really cool to have a business and just be flexible with the hours. So when I came back from that, I could just kind of catch up and work whenever I'm available, really. And
Mhm.
so interesting how, I used to come home from work from teaching or whatever, and I would make art in my free time as, my hobby or just more than a hobby, it's deeper than that. But now it just all kind of intertwines together. So oftentimes it doesn't feel like work and I'm just kind of doing what I would normally do anyways. And then there's
Mhm.
also the very much work aspect of it where I'm like on my computer doing marketing or whatever it may be. So,
Mhm. Hmm.
yeah, I kind of just flow with whatever I can and just do as much as I can, try to put as much into it so I can be successful with it.
And do you do some artwork, and I saw on your Instagram you talk about meditation. How often do you make time for that? Or do you, because, y
Mhm.
do you make time for it?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was teaching, I was really good about doing a 10-minute meditation every morning before I left for work, which was really cool. And you may have seen, I also make more in the past, but still occasionally now I make altars out of found objects from different natural materials in the land and different parts of my pottery and stuff. So I make kind of like a visual prayer. So oftentimes I would make a large altar on the ground, and that's kind of the space holder for meditation for me. I haven't
Hmm.
been doing that as much lately, but meditation to me comes in so many forms. So when I'm throwing on the wheel, that's a meditation. Like it's so beautiful when the clay is just like has that circular motion and my hands are just moving with it and it feels like I'm one with like the earth and the clay. And that's a meditation. And
Mhm.
I'm out hiking or mountain biking or doing whatever. Like there's so many different forms of meditation, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a sitting meditation or a silent meditation. So,
I wanna ask another question about your actual artwork, because, you came from you did your MFA, you said your background is in oil painting, and I wanted to know how and kind of when did you find your style? Because your artwork is very stylized. I'm talking specifically about the drawings and paintings. Like I said, the way you make your fire, it's, there's a style to it. So how did you jump from realistic oil paintings to where you are now?
mhm. Yeah, I think just making and making and making over years and years and years uh, is what develops style. And it just takes such a long time of coming to who I am and what's important in my life, like developing my own spirituality and um, not being afraid to really allow who I truly am to come through my art and to not kind of like shy down and be more mainstream, just allow myself to push the boundaries and get weird. And I think that was definitely cultivated through grad schools, where it was just grad school and undergrad, just art school. I meant, and just it's very like openly accepted to just be weird and to do like weird stuff in your art and just experiment and explore. And that was definitely a huge thing in grad school. Was my program was all about experimentation that first
Mm.
year. A lot of times grad programs are 2 years for an MFA, and mine was 3 years so that they could give you an extra year just to kind of experiment and try new things. But I definitely think having like a regular drawing practice helped me hone in. Definitely like writing about what I'm doing with my concepts,
Mm,
helped me with like my visual language and what I want to convey, talking about art, like in critiques over and over again, definitely looking at other artists and
mhm,
seeing what I'm drawn to and taking bits and pieces and aspects of that into my art. But yeah, I think it's really just about making as much as possible over and over, and it'll just develop over time, and it will continue to develop for me like what I truly like want to create. And it's funny when I look back at the progression from high school, like I definitely used to be very perfectionistic and very tight. And I remember my
mm,
high school art teacher like trying to loose me up with my drawing and painting. And he brought this huge canvas to school one day and he just had me kind of like paint all over it as a background.
oh,
I painted stuff on top of it. So definitely like mentors guiding me with different things to help break me out of the box
mm,
um and just things that I do myself to just continue to push the boundaries, and especially with like very fluid, like in my landscape painting series, um,
mhm,
just like going for it. And then I know I
yeah,
can always take the canvas off, put a new canvas on, gesso it, and then I can have a new fresh canvas, and not being afraid to make mistakes and just allow it
that's
to happen.
so great to hear from, like, I guess, a recovered perfectionist because, like your mindset, I would never have guessed you were a perfectionist back in the day. Not that your artwork isn't like perfect, but it's flowy. It doesn't have that like tightness that you're talking about. And yeah, when I was a teacher, every now and then there would be a kid who was like very perfectionist. And that was hard to like get them to not be. But you had an open mind and uh, I guess took the advice of your mentors. Very
Mhm.
cool. So that's
Yeah,
neat.
and, like, when I was teaching drawing to undergrad college students, like, formal traditional drawing where we were drawing a still life every day that I would set up for them. We would do different exercises where one day they would draw for half the class, and then I'd surprise them and be like, "Okay, we're gonna rotate to the, easel to the left of you," and then they started drawing on each other's artwork and fixing, like, the mistakes in
Hmm,
that situation. They were really trying to replicate the still life exactly proportionally and all that. And when you're doing that, you can often see like the mistakes better on somebody else's than your own
right.
when you've been staring at it for a while. But I think that exercise is cool just to know that like the students drew on each other's stuff, and it doesn't have to be like this perfect drawing at the end that's like all yours. That's a finished work. There's lots of exercises you can do to loosen up.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter what the end result is.
That's great advice. That's really because sometimes you get very well, I guess the key word is stuck with a perfectionist, but even as a teacher to try to get them out of it. Um, and do you keep a sketchbook?
I have always kept a very I have a very adamant and like detailed like sketchbook practice throughout all my years since high
Mhm.
school. And it's funny because actually recently I've put the sketchbook down and moved to my iPad with Procreate, which is kind of huge. But I've always had a sketchbook pretty much with me at all times. So these are like the sketchbooks I use.
Mhm.
I would do writing and drawing, and it would literally go everywhere with me on planes. If I would go out to dinner in case I got like somewhere early for 10 minutes, and then I would just
Mhm.
and work on a sketchbook. I'd often like go to yoga classes early and like do some sketching in a sketchbook. So it's definitely been a huge practice of mine. Um, and I definitely think it's a great way to just like develop your artistic practice in kind of a casual way rather than making like larger finished artworks. And that's a way to really like move through a lot of imagery and start to develop a visual language.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's just really funny, like I flew home to New York to see my family and I didn't bring my sketchbook for the first time
Oh
ever.
no.
So weird but awesome because I brought my iPad and I've just
Oh.
been really enjoying working with Procreate and doing digital art, which is pretty shocking to me because I've always been very like anti-digital art for myself, not for other people. You can do whatever like
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's kind of replaced it for me in a way, and it's
Hmm.
been really fun to work in that new medium and be surprised by that medium and just like enjoy it so much.
I love looking at your digital art. It's really like exciting and fun to see. It's like kind of like candy for the eye because it's so colorful and exciting. What can I ask what kind of brush you use in Procreate? Or if
Um,
you know.
I use a lot of the brushes. I use the turpentine brush
Okay.
lately because it kind of blends in with the background colors.
Mm-hmm.
But Procreate is also such a good way to just like experiment and push the boundaries with what you're making because you can like scribble on it, you can do something crazy and then just delete it the next
Right.
second and see what it looks like, and it's not permanent. So I think it's a really awesome tool.
Yeah. No, I love Procreate. I have it now with my iPad, but I haven't done like paintings with it. And I use it for more, just like graphic design kind of work, but I love your paintings. And I'm going to try that turpentine brush.
Really, all of the paintbrushes are awesome in there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
just all the wide variety of brushes. Like the first things I did when I first started using it was just constantly like switch from brush to brush and drawing tool or whatever tools are in there and just like try them all out. I also love there's actually like a fire one, and there's a
Mm.
smoke and clouds and like all these natural materials
Hmm.
that are super fun.
Very cool. Yeah. So of course, just to goes to show that you can always evolve and learn. And it was really nice hearing about your whole process and your business. And um, I appreciate your time so much. And it was really nice talking to you. And I love your work. I'm going to keep following you. I guess the last question I'll ask is, do you have any advice you would give to um, your younger self? Like, what would you have done differently, if anything?
I would say like don't be afraid to be weird and just like continually ask yourself and work towards being your true self and just allowing that to shine and not being afraid of what other people think of you, which is
Amazing.
so much easier said than done.
That's for sure. But it seems like you are getting that you have the hang of it.
Yeah.
That's
Slowly
yeah.
over time, it's been developed and it will continue to develop.
So where can we find out more about you, Kendra, and buy your beautiful artwork?
So you can follow me on Instagram. My business name is Being Sacred Art, and my website is beingsacredart.com. And if you're working like along your creative journey and process, I post different like tips to guide you, and I'm going to be posting some different drawing prompts and stuff like that. So if you have any questions for me about the creative process, feel free to message me on there. I would love to chat with you and help you in any way that I can.
Thank you. And I'm going to put the links below in the show notes. So thank you so much. Take
Yeah,
care.
awesome. Thanks.
You might see a sweet purple flower or a magical rainbow sky. Then a shiny balloon or a bright yellow moon catches your eye. There are so many colorful places to be, so many curious faces to see. And wouldn't it be nice to draw every wonderful thing you saw? Color, form, line, space, shape, texture, and value. With these elements of art, you can draw what's in your heart. And that's a beautiful place to start. You might see a shimmery goldfish in a shimmering goldfish bowl. You might meet a goat or a pony whose coat is blacker than coal. But how do you so thin. Well, you know there's a way to draw every wonderful thing you saw. Color, form, line, space, shape, texture, and value. With these elements of art, you can draw what's in your heart, and that's a beautiful place to start. Color, form, line, space, shape, texture, and value. With these elements of art, you can draw what's in your heart.